Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne. Learn more under the Explore tab at acpl.info. Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne. Learn more under the Explore tab at acpl.info. Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne. Learn more under the Explore tab at acpl.info. Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne. Learn more under the Explore tab at acpl. Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne. Learn more under the Explore tab at ACPL.
Hi, I'm Stephen Platt, manager of the Georgetown branch of the Allen County Public Library. At this location, we're at the intersection of our community, which means that we serve all kinds of people with all kinds of needs. Some of our customers need help finding the right book for their children, while some need help finding where to log into email. Some teens need a place to study, while some adults have decided they need to learn new skills for a new career. Our community demands a number of different services delivered up quickly and efficiently, and that means we need a versatile team. Luckily, that's our greatest strength. From our front desk to our departments, we stand ready to field any number of questions. On the topic of numbers, our staff is excellent with our incredible volume of interactions. In the month of June this year, Georgetown branch handled 6,300 interactions between reference, non-reference, and curbside deliveries. Amazing to think that this is a 12% increase over June 2019 before we were closed for COVID. We are a busy branch, but we maintain through our collaborative efforts. At Georgetown, we have 6 librarians, 1 full-time branch assistant, 5 part-time branch assistants, 3 shelvers, 1 security guard, and 1 housekeeper. Every Monday morning, we band together to figure
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the August 26th session of the Allen County Public Library Board of Trustees. This is a red letter day. This is the first time in a long time we've met outside of Maine or by Zoom. So let's hope we're moving in the right direction. Gloria, would you call the roll?
Certainly. Kent Castleman,
Present.
Jim,
Present.
Martin,
Present.
Ben.
Present.
We have 2 that are not here yet, and we have 5 that are here.
5 present, 2 absent. We have a quorum. I'll entertain a motion then that we adopt the agenda as distributed.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay, and that too passes. The approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of the regular session of July 22nd, 2021. I'll entertain a motion that we accept the minutes as distributed.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Corrections or additions? None? All those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
And opposed by nay. And then the minutes of the approval of the claims of August 11th, 2021. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ken. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
And opposed by nay. David, financial report for July.
All right, thank you, Ben. In your packet are the reports, and I'm going to keep this short today because there are a number of presentations that are going to take place. And so really, we met on Tuesday and kind of discussed all the budget items that were going on there. So I'll keep it, like I said, short. There's no new lines that are going out of their spending thresholds, so nothing to report there. The main things we're working on right now are the 2022 budget and the compensation benefit programs for 2022 that we'll be doing throughout the rest of third and fourth quarter. As you may recall from Tuesday, the main items, I'm going to be meeting with the state on next Thursday and reviewing all of our budget submissions. As you recall, there's only the general fund this year because the debt service will pay off at the end of the year. And then after we receive their approval to move forward, we'll publish for the public hearing, which is slated for October 18th. That's a Monday. And then we will have our final passage slated for October 28th, the board meeting of the 28th. And just as a reminder, we will need a quorum at that one present because that's one of those meetings that was excluded for any virtual presence ability. So we have to have those present, be able to sign there for any budget activities. So with that, really, that is all I'm going to talk about today. I know we talked a lot on Tuesday for the F&P meeting, but I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Not, thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion. We adopt the financial report.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Marty. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
And opposed by nay. How about the claims?
Yep, I just circulated that to Gloria and I'll bring them around.
Anything unusual?
No, the main one this time was OCLC, which is in our group that does all the cataloging and metadata for our catalog system. That one is the highest check, followed by 2. One of them is the CME Corporation, again, the Roland Center expenditures on that. And then, thanks. And then other library material.
Thank you.
So that's the highest ones. this week.
Okay, well, the claims are coming along and we'll entertain a motion. We approve the claims as distributed.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay, and it passes. Okay, we have a presentation. Stephen? You're on.
Welcome to Georgetown. I'm Stephen Platt, branch manager here, and I just want to say that we prepared a little video for you, but before we show it to you, I just want to mention that it was a collaborative effort between Stephanie's team, Kay Gregg, who filmed it, and Joe down in Access Fort Wayne, and Nick Barry, one of our branch assistants here, who has an English major and wrote the script for me. So I just want to say, I hope that it highlights not just Georgetown here, but the whole system. We have a lot of talented individuals that work for this organization, the staff, our biggest investment to provide those services for the community. And this happens every day. The things that they do, the talent, the creativity, their hard work, things from like planning with vision to cleaning the carpet on your hands and knees to get the spots out. So I just want to hope that this video shows that, not here at Georgetown, but also through the system, what we do every day and who we are as a staff. So please watch the video here and we'll cue it up. Hi, I'm Stephen Platt, manager of the Georgetown branch of the Allen County Public Library. At this location, we're at the intersection of our community, which means that we serve all kinds of people with all kinds of needs. Some of our customers need help finding the right book for their children, while some need help finding where to log into email. Some teens need a place to study, while some adults have decided they need to learn new skills for a new career. Our community demands a number of different services delivered up quickly and efficiently, and that means we need a versatile team. Luckily, that's our greatest strength. From our front desk to our departments, we stand ready to field any number of questions. On the topic of numbers, our staff is excellent with our incredible volume of interactions. In the month of June this year, Georgetown branch handled 6,300 interactions between reference, non-reference, and curbside deliveries. Amazing to think that this is a 12% increase over June 2019 before we were closed for COVID. We are a busy branch, but we maintain through our collaborative efforts. At Georgetown, we have 6 librarians, 1 full-time branch assistant, 5 part-time branch assistants, 3 shelvers, 1 security guard, and 1 housekeeper. Every Monday morning, we band together to figure out just how it is we open at 10 a.m. Naturally, we greet our customers with a freshly prepared branch, and many we know by name. Throughout the day, we all pitch in shelving, organizing, and even decorating. We work hard to keep a pleasant environment at Georgetown. Sometimes that means cleaning, and sometimes that means putting up a new display. We host many programs under normal conditions, but right now we make do with story time and virtual programming. We are looking forward to a return to full programming in person for all ages, and with the rest of the system are participating in ramping this up in the fall of 2021. We are busy throughout almost the entire day, so sometimes we have to step in and help each other out or look to local volunteers who can. In fact, our volunteers logged an incredible 40 hours per month during COVID. This is the equivalent of a full-time position. No matter the task, we all know how to pitch in to help. Often our customers need more help than just finding books. Many of our customers need help navigating our computers or finding a place to conduct meetings. Whatever their need, we are here to help. A new addition is our mini art gallery. The staff voted earlier in the year at how they wish to fill the empty wall space in the library. Overwhelmingly, we voted to host local artists and celebrate their work and bring color and life to our building. So we hope this was an insightful look into the very heart of Georgetown, the staff. If you'd like to know more, why don't you come on down and give us a visit? No matter your question, I'm sure we'll find a solution. Hi, I'm Steve. I'm here to answer any questions should you have any.
Question?
Yes.
Stephen, I'll put you on the spot for a second because I went over to that soap store across the street a few weeks ago and I didn't even know that you were having a partnership with them to do some programming. And I love how you engage with local businesses in Georgetown. And I just wondered if you might speak to that for a moment.
Sure. Yes, we look to local businesses to partner because they have a lot of expertise in certain things, such as the bakery next door. Before COVID, of course, we were able to do an All Things Con, which was the entire Georgetown Square. And we had, cosplay and we had photo booths and we had speakers coming in to talk about comic book characters. And we had an 80s room where you could step back in time. And it was all planned in conjunction with the bakery next door. And we're doing something similar now, I think on September 4th, Labor Day weekend. They're doing an auto show here. So we're going to be participating at that. And the guy from the soap company next door is organizing that. So I love to take opportunities like that where we can work with our community. Obviously, there's a lot of work to do. I attend all these meetings about the future, but I know that we can do it because of these people, because of the dedication that we have here in this organization. And we're here to basically take your vision and to make it happen.
And I think we would all say we're here to take your vision and make it happen.
Great.
On that end. On kind of continuing on that front, I know that I've heard for years that Georgetown has a large after-school attendance, and sometimes that can be a challenge for the building.
Indeed.
And for staff and things along those lines too. And I thought if you had, a few minutes to expand on that and talk about that a little bit.
Sure, I'd love to. When I came here 2.5 years ago, it was very challenging because there were a lot of kids in the building just roaming around. We didn't have a security guard at the time. We were provided with a security guard from Maine. It was usually a different person every day or every other week. So you couldn't establish a relationship with the kids or the parents. So one of the things that we did immediately was establish a relationship with the school next door to work with them on any issues that might come up. We took this very room that you're sitting in, and turned it into not just a place where they could have a free-for-all, but with a little more relaxed rules, kind of following the example of classroom management, the way the tables are spaced, some low-level activities to allow them to blow off a little steam. We had a noise machine that would, after 90 decibels, would make a siren sound. And then we would try to work with the parents. So if we had to ask a child to leave for some behavioral issue, we would try to contact the parents first and inform them of what was going on. And then, of course, the school every time. So that helped out quite a bit, those relationships. Obviously, it's not where it needs to be right now. We need to have more activities for these kids. When they get off of school, all they want to do is hang out and visit with their friends and be on their devices. So we allow them to do that in a safe space. But we need to engage them more. We need to engage them in a way that will allow them to learn and do some productive things after school. And I believe the only way we can do that is through partnerships. And looking to the future, that's something that I would like to expand here.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions of Steve? No, well done.
Thank
Very
you
well
for
done.
your
Thank you.
time and
Thank you.
attention.
And thank you for hosting us for our first time at a branch in 2 years.
Mhm.
Okay, let's turn now to committee reports. Marty, capital projects.
Thank you, Ben. For the Capital Projects Committee, I think we told you last month, we're going to have a presentation today from our consultants who have been working very diligently here on our facility master plan. So let me go ahead and introduce them. You guys could come on up. First, we have June Garcia, library consultant, coming up, who's been one of the diligent people working on this project and has been here in Fort Wayne many times now. Rick as well, Rick Ortmeyer is with the Boswick Group, has been leading the facilities management process as we've undergone it. And we have a video, or PowerPoint presentation, I should say, to go over. But our job here is really, I wanted to introduce them to all the board members and let all the other board members. The Capital Project Committee is Kent, myself, and Ben. Obviously, we've discussed via Zoom and live a number of different things, but I wanted to give an opportunity for all the board members to meet and also go through and answer questions as we go through this process. So without any further ado, Rick, June, go ahead.
Thank you, Marty. Can you hear me okay? So before we get started, I want to share that everything that you'll see in this presentation has been made possible by the collaboration that we've experienced with the staff, the managers, the leadership team, Kim and Susan in particular, and then Marty and Kent and Ben. So we have benefited greatly from the deep experience, the hospitality, the generosity of time that allowed us to harvest a lot of information and start to make some recommendations, which will be coming in the next several months. So first of all, just to expand a little bit on the introduction, my name is Rick Ortmeyer. I'm a principal with Boswick Design Partnership. We are a Cleveland-based architecture firm. We have offices in Erie, Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh and Miami, Florida. But our home base and our historic origins are in Cleveland. And I personally, with some experience from previous offices, have enjoyed working with libraries since the mid-1990s and have accumulated some experience working across the upper Midwest and in the Northeast on what is now upwards of 75 total projects, which includes planning and library design and renovation projects. I also was a library board member for 5 years in Cleveland Heights, which is my home community, which was a remarkable, rewarding, and very educational experience to learn the library world and learn my own community from that perspective. For the last decade or so, I've had the great pleasure of collaborating with June, and I'll let June introduce herself.
Hello, my name is June Garcia. I am a public librarian. I've been one for a little over 50 years now. I can't believe that. 20 plus years as a consultant. Prior to that, working in public libraries in a variety of states, but most recently the director of the San Antonio Public Library during the time when we expanded, renovated, or replaced all 18 of our branches and built a new central library all in a 6-year period. It was kind of crazy, but prepares you for the world of consulting as well. And so, pleasure to be here with you.
Thanks, June. Another person who's been integral to the planning process, and we'll talk a little bit about his work, is the third name you see here, which is Carson Block, who was a technology, in the technology world in a library in Colorado, and leveraged that into a consultancy and filled a niche that was really necessary in the library consulting world. And he's got a unique now, really national expertise, and we're grateful for his participation. And I believe, Susan had some learning experiences with Carson prior to this opportunity being made available to our team. So I want to talk a little bit about the context, and some of you may be familiar with this, but the purpose of this master plan is to set a roadmap for future capital improvements over the next decade for the Allen County Public Library facilities. We recognize that the Allen County Public Library is providing remarkable library service, as evidenced by the video we just saw as an example in Georgetown, but the facilities aren't all allowing that to be done equitably or as efficiently as it can be. So what we're doing is creating a plan that allows you to understand the state of the current libraries and how we might think about renovations, changes to the system so that the facilities moving forward can deliver library services equitably and efficiently and affordably over time. And this is a series of quotes from the request for proposals that outline the request that we responded to. So the other part of the context that we want to just remind everyone, and it's part of our analysis, is just a quick snapshot of the infrastructure that you have. So in this chart, it shows the age of all your current facilities. And the diamond shape represents the original building date. And for those that received an update, the blue circle represents an update to the original building, or in some cases, the original building is still as it was originally built without any major capital improvements. So we recognize there's ongoing maintenance, there's improvements, but no major capital improvements. And you can see this big investment that was made in the early 2000s that really reinvented most of the facilities in your system, except for Avoyt and DuPont. And those remain mostly as they were from the early to mid 90s. So this is just a snapshot of where we are in the age of these facilities. And one thing that's significant to note is that as we look a decade forward, all of those newer facilities will be between 20 and 25 years old. So it's time to start thinking about that now when we imagine the time frame it takes to plan, understand, get into new planning, and get new projects implemented. These will be aging out. So another factor that provides a lot of pressure on the usage that you're currently seeing is the continued growth of Allen County. Allen County and Fort Wayne are justifiably proud of what is unusual in the Great Lakes area in the Midwest is continuous growth. That continuous growth of population projected to keep rising over the next several years and over the next decade will continue to add more foot traffic, more people, more needs, more school members, school board, school children into these buildings, and the facilities will have to respond accordingly. Another factor is if we think about when these buildings were built, how much has changed in library service. And again, another just snapshot of the kinds of things that librarians are doing in their facilities now that didn't even exist in the mid 90s to early 2000s. The kinds of things that the libraries need to do increasingly. So we're still committed to traditional print collections, and yet all of these other new needs and community needs are advancing library facilities to respond to those community needs in new ways. If you have any thoughts to add there?
I was joking with Rick at lunch that when I started as a librarian, it was a big deal when we got our second electric typewriter.
And if we look back at this,
That was back in the 1970 line.
back here. But all of these buildings were built, when they were built, iPhones and iPads weren't even a thing yet. So that's just one sort of snapshot of an example of how things have changed so much between the last time your facilities were updated and now.
And the old typewriter didn't need an electrical plug either.
So that's just some of the larger context of the things that are currently being experienced in the facilities and in your community now, and that the community that you're serving so well, but the facilities could do a better job of supporting those services as they evolve. So we're going to walk through the process that we've done to date. And most of the process to date has been information gathering from a series of different sources. So we're going to walk through each of these notes on the timeline briefly, but we can open up to questions as we go. And we'll actually maybe pause to see if there's any questions along the way. So our first step was to visit all the facilities in person, which is invaluable for us to make sure we understand the community context from the visual and actually go in person, but more importantly, hear from the branch managers and staff, frontline staff, what's happening in those communities, how are the facilities responding to that, what are the challenges, what's good. But we're really gratified that in each case, quite often, justifiably branch managers and staff can say, well, I don't like this and I don't like that. But to a person, what we heard was our community members need this, our community members struggle with that. So there was this outward focus, there was this understanding that they are in service of the community that you serve, not I don't like this and I don't like that. And there's lots of good to be documented here. There's a lot of remarkably well-maintained and positive aspects to all these facilities, but it's important to also understand where these things can be done, can be improved. So we have thousands of photographs, thousands of pages of notes from the staff about the existing conditions. And we're also benefiting from Jake and his team in the facilities about understanding those things that are harder to understand in a quick tour about mechanical systems and the age of systems that we have a deeper understanding over time from his team. The other thing that we did, in addition to getting direct input in our tours, was we made a staff survey available to the entire staff. We got almost 150 responses. What this shows is that we actually had staff members from every location, every department in Maine. So the staff surveys included the entire organization. We got input from the entire organization, which was great. These are just some example quotes of the kinds of things that we learned from staff in those surveys, but it was also a way to reach the entire staff that we wouldn't have been able to reach just in individual tours where we were only benefiting from access to several people at a time. We also conducted a little more future thinking, a little more forward-looking staff focus groups. The staff focus groups were facilitated with dialogue around 4 primary strategic service delivery areas. And those strategic service delivery areas are aligned with another initiative already happening with staff and leadership around library design guidelines. So we talked in depth around adult services, youth services, meeting room spaces for the public, and outdoor spaces. And we gathered well over 100 images that we shared of how other libraries around the country and the world are building facilities to support these kinds of services. They weren't meant as recommendations, and we intentionally would show different ways that libraries had done things for the same purpose. It was really to spark conversation and get the staff to help us understand, of all these potential ideas for these kinds of services, which are relevant for the community in Allen County and which would be appropriate, or which way might be appropriate. So we've harvested a lot of great information, again, from staff. Just the video, again, is another great example of how staff understand their community and the way that the facility could do better to serve their community. So that's going to help shape our recommendations moving forward. Before we go farther, are there any questions about the sort of initial engagement with staff? We designed this specifically so that we would hear from the organization first, and then we would move outward. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts about staff? Okay. Parallel to that, and this was really in our consultant Carson's primary area of his focus, was a series of technology surveys. And he designed 5 surveys that cut across the entire organization because, as we all know, one of the biggest shifts in the history of library service that continues to evolve at an ever-increasing pace is how technology changes what we do and what our community needs. So this was a high-level strategic surveys at the senior leadership level, but then working with Kim Q and her team on a little bit of a deeper dive on infrastructure enterprise-wide. And Carson also toured departments within the entire building in Maine, and he went out to the DeSalle location and met with some of the other areas of infrastructure that are adjacent and supportive of technology, like your courier services, to document where those pinch points are, where the pluses are, and where the challenges might be as we understand how technology is being used today. Carson also, similar to the staff focus groups, he held visioning sessions about the future of technology in libraries. What has changed so rapidly and where things are headed. And Allen County Public Library is doing a remarkable job keeping up with that pace of change. But like any organization, it's a constantly evolving question that has to have investment and strategic thought about how we move forward, because, as this simple diagram shows, technology encompasses everything we do inside the organization and outside the organization. So with a deep engagement with staff, we turned to have conversations with your community members. And that was in 3 broad categories. One was what we called community focus groups. These were working with stakeholder constituents of, I would say, partner and peer organizations, and also elected officials and other stakeholders in your community who might have a unique perspective based on how they serve communities with maybe some crossover mission, serve your community, that could inform their understanding of how the library is working today, and just from their perspective, how some of these partnerships may work better. So we talked to what we call community partners, which were a lot of the nonprofit organizations that the library already is partnering with. The library recognizes, and leadership recognized, that the Spanish-speaking community is a constituency that there may be some groundwork to do to forge a stronger relationship with. So that was another focus group. That was a focus group where we actually didn't get any participants, but had an amazing conversation with the interpreter, who was a Nicaraguan immigrant in the last couple of years. We had 2 focus group sessions with elected officials, and that was just to make sure we had a broad connectivity, because the first meeting had a conflict with some schedules. We were gratified that we got sort of both broad representation, but also representation of different constituencies within the county, from an urban core and from the growing suburbs. We also had a conversation with economic development in Greater Fort Wayne, and understanding how the library is an asset that can contribute to the message about why it's positive to live here and locate your businesses here. We also, based on an interaction we had at one of our community open sessions, which we'll talk about in a minute, we understand the homeschool community relies heavily and benefits greatly from the library and the library services, and their families' education depends on that heavily. So we created an outreach opportunity for a focus group. Again, for all kinds of reasons, we didn't get any participants. So having learned from all these groups and having a couple that we didn't get the participation we like, we're working with Susan and leadership team to have some additional focus group sessions with the Spanish-speaking community, with the homeschool community, and also with the Burmese community. And we know that there was some good engagement in the strategic planning process with the Burmese community, so there's already some connections forged that we can leverage. So this is ongoing, but it was one of the foundational starting points for our engagement with the community, to hear from them.
Rick, before you leave that slide,
Yeah.
One of the, both of the elected official groups had a number of school board members in attendance, and they were active participants as well as mayors and council persons.
And Rick, if I could just interrupt, when I looked at this originally, when you showed it, I think it just shows that we really need to reach out and go to where people are, especially like the Spanish-speaking community, the Burmese community, homeschool. I think that's part of where we added on. We need to go out and make sure we meet these people, and not just say, come to us, but let's go to them to understand what they need and how we can help them. I think it's really important for our staff and our community to understand that.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And I would say that normally, and I know historically in other initiatives that this organization has undertaken, that's what was done. We did a lot of our focus groups virtually via Zoom, because we were still in COVID, and that in some ways handicapped our ability to reach those audiences that we want to reach. But I think that then prompts us to do exactly what you're saying. The other thing that we did is we hosted 5 open houses that we called Community Conversations, 2 at Maine, 1 at DuPont, 1 at New Haven, and 1 at Waynedale over the course of 3 days. And again, in spite of us still being in a time of COVID, we got what we consider really great conversations from upwards of about 50 community members who took the time to come and provide their feedback. Similar to what we had done for the staff engagement, we had a smaller subset of the kind of imagery we showed with staff that actually was customized and informed based on the staff feedback we got of different ways libraries around the world and regionally have provided facilities to support library service. We also enhanced that with some prompts, some captions that sort of suggested to them, here's why this images might be meaningful. So we want your feedback. And again, we made it clear these were not recommendations, or these were not, you should do this, but these were just images to spark conversation. And sometimes the most gratifying parts of these conversations were when you have 4 community members gathered around an image arguing whether you should have drive-up services or not. Because for some of them, that might have been extravagance, and others, it's like, oh, absolutely, I got 3 kids and I don't want to unpack them every time. I just need to go get a DVD. As a father of a 3-year-old, I can certainly sympathize with that. The other thing that we did, because we wanted to make this as accessible as possible. So we asked them to write their notes on sticky notes, and you can see some of the results of that. This image on the lower right was from DuPont. But we also gave them just a handout. If they didn't necessarily feel like being up at the board, or they didn't necessarily want to be in the crowd with a couple of other people, we printed off a color-coded handout, and they could just write, I like this picture, and they just write the number down. All the images were numbered, and I don't like this one, and they could write notes as to why. So we really tried to make sure we gave them as many avenues as possible to provide that feedback. Every one of these image boards from all 5 meetings is documented. We have photographs that are high enough resolution. You can zoom in and see the sticky note. We have been talking about, as an archive of this process, that it would be great to be able to share that back with the community so that they can understand that this was an informative session, that their voice was heard, that their notes still are part of the archive of this project and this process. The other thing that gratified us about these sessions was on the 2 sessions that we held at Maine, the press showed up. And that generally they left impressed and wrote very positive articles, and they took the time to not only have brief conversations with us and with Susan, but they interviewed the community members who took the time to show up. And we recognized that there were so many variables around this community conversation that having the broader message back to the community be very positive, with a headline that talks about the praise that the library heard from the community members who took time to show up. We recognize as a positive aspect of this process. That is also part of the record. So the other way that I'd say the broader team engaged the community was Susan had what sounded like a pretty remarkable, and I'm sorry I missed it, conversation with the Teen Reads group. And they had access to the same series of images that the rest of the community saw. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Susan, but if you have any just quick comments about how that conversation went, a couple of pull quotes that we pulled from your notes.
Well, I have to say it's probably the most fun 2 hours I've had in the 6 months I've been working here. No offense, because these meetings are wonderful, but the teams were just incredible. These were our Teen Read team workers that we had for the summer, and we used them as a focus group and just had some incredibly insightful observations about how they saw library service currently and how they would like to see it evolve. Some of the things that the adults had really strong opinions about, not surprisingly, the teens had very different opinions about. So really, really important feedback to get. You've got a lot of great ideas.
Yeah. Thanks. The other initiative that happened, and Kim, you may correct some of the nomenclature, I think it was at 6 of the branches, at least 6 of the branches so far, library staff facilitated these kind of dream exercises for kids. So we got an amazing collection of children's drawings of what they imagined the future library might want to look like. I wish I could show them all, because I just wish I was that creative again and could sort of, free associate like that. I do like this one in particular because they draw all this kind of amazing stuff here, and then they had this sort of part of the drawing and said, well, this isn't designed yet. So just don't look.
Future expansion space. This was very smart on this part of this young child.
Yeah, I'm going to use that someday. A presentation of my own. Don't look here. This isn't designed. But again, it was a way to really get engagement from every age group across the spectrum. And it's always really important and I think rewarding to engage both teens and kids in this, because frankly, if you think 5-10 years from now, some of the kids and some of the teens may be bringing their kids 10 years from now into these branches that they sort of help respond to, and these kids will be growing up in the libraries that may benefit from future capital improvements.
Rick, I think staff mentioned that many of the parents were there when the kids were engaged in the activity. So it was also a conversation between parents and children around that topic. So that was also beneficial.
So the third broad category of engagement with the full community was an online survey. And this was made available from mid-July till the end of the month. It was online. It was both in English, and we also created a Spanish language version of the survey. And one of the questions was, which branch do you visit most often? So we didn't get tons of participation from every location, but we were very grateful that we actually, like the staff, we got full participation from every location. There were community members who called one of your locations home, and every location was covered. We also asked a question about what do you typically do? It may not surprise you that the number one answer of that was browsing and checking out books of the respondents, and there was 704 total respondents, followed by attending programs or bringing children to attend programs or doing research. Another question is, how often do you visit? So some of these metrics are things that just give us sort of broad data about how the community, and in this case, the respondents, use the library and how often. So we're going to talk a little bit about, there was a couple of open-ended questions on the survey. And another part of what Carson Block, our technology consultant, does for us is that he does a lot of survey analysis, because in open-ended questions, there's a lot to read and a lot to pull. But we collected some themes out of these open-ended questions. And one of the questions was, what do you like best about the library that you visit most often? So I think it's a testament to all the branch managers and staff, certainly Georgetown included, that the number one answer from all those respondents and the number one theme was highlighting how great the staff was. And that part of your video where you know them by name and they come in and they're regulars, that matters, and that leaves a mark and that leaves an impression. And I'd say the survey results from the respondents really bear that out. There's other themes that are in your handouts that I think I don't need to go into great detail unless you have specific questions, but I want to just touch on some of these other open-ended questions quickly. So another question, are there other things that they aren't really seeing that the library might consider? This is just harvesting information from people who may go to other public spaces, and what might they think? The number one theme was about outdoor spaces, and we recognize that, and the staff actually commented on this quite a bit. There's a lot of amazing sites that your libraries occupy. Most of them don't have a lot of discretionary outdoor space to develop as programming space. I think a lot of librarians are still using that space regardless. I know your colleague in Woodburn, in her video, spent the first 2 minutes of her video amazingly talking about all the things that the parking lot does, including be a space where people come to get Wi-Fi to finish their paper, or it's where we have programs. So it is reflective of your community that they recognize that, hey, outdoor spaces would be great to use at the library, because I know the library is doing a lot of outreach in other places where they have access to outdoor spaces. Another question is just a final question. What should we know? Just any last thoughts you have? And of the broad themes, the single biggest theme was about making sure that master plan recognizes that books are at the heart of that master plan. So this bears that out. This is an important acknowledgement of the importance on the collections that we know your community already has shared with you. But I would also just like to point out that of the respondents, a lot of people wanted that final message to be, by the way, I said it before, your staff are amazing. One of the questions that we felt it was important to ask is just very directly, do you believe you would support a bond for this kind of library transformation, this kind of improvements? Of the 700, just over 700 that took the survey, just under 600 answered this question. And of those respondents, those who answered very likely to support or likely to support equaled almost 71% of the responses. So to the extent that that is representative in some way of the community that you serve. That's a positive message to carry. We recognize it's not the entire constituency, but it was a positive message to hear as part of the survey. Any questions about the three broad categories of community engagement or anything you want me to touch on in any more detail? Yeah.
The other part, I just want to, I think we all know this, but you've had access to all the previous studies that were done as well as the demographic studies.
Correct.
And that's going to be factored in your recommendations. And
Yes,
as well, right?
correct. And Denise has shared, there's a lot of other organizations have done a lot of remarkable work demonstrating both the positive aspects around Fort Wayne and Allen County and some of the challenges that Allen County faces. And some of that information will be included as part of the context, including access to public transportation and those kind of maps. Any other questions about the community engagement? Okay. So getting back to here's where we are. So we've had a remarkably rewarding experiencing harvesting a lot of information. And it's important because I think documenting to the community and frankly documenting to you the state of the library as it is today is an important aspect of any plan. So we're continuing to analyze that data. We're continuing to analyze a lot of the technology responses we got. We are here in late August, looking forward into kind of continuing that analysis into September. At the same time, that will start to shape some of the recommendations. Those recommendations will come in some ways in the form of options. But as we formulate those, we will continue to be in active dialogue with leadership and certainly the Capital Projects Committee so that those recommendations are in concert with both the mission, but also the deeper understanding of the community and what you understand the community needs from these facilities over the next couple of months. And that what we will be preparing at the end of October will be what we're now, the working title, it will be a public comment draft. So it will be a complete series of draft recommendations that we're currently working on how we take those draft recommendations and get continued community feedback so that we understand how the final document might be shaped with that final input so that we received a lot of input from your community and we want to make sure we engage them again before we call anything final. So that's where we are today. One quick note about what we're asking of staff as part of our alignment with documenting current conditions. So a big part of our recommendations will be responding to how your libraries provide library service to your community today. And we created a rubric around 6 categories that start with site. So where's the building located? Is it located on a major route? Is it easy to find? Is it easy to see? Does the site allow for expansion? How does the parking lot work today? Some, I'd say, guardrails around what's the possibility for improvements at this site. We also are analyzing the building condition, and this is where Jake is instrumental in helping us really understand from a system standpoint, but we look at the envelope and the structure, the condition of finishes, and other things that are the physical infrastructure of the library that you have today. We have 2 categories that are around sort of operations of the library. One we called service functionality. This is really about how the public sees your libraries and how the public sees them working for you today. An example that comes up is the largest building in your system is DuPont. Just by how the library was planned over time, there's a co-location of computers adjacent to the children's area. And that has created a little bit of a dissatisfier on both sides of that walking path. So from a service functionality, we would just note that there are some adjacencies that are not optimal. And we're hearing it from the community, but we're also hearing it from staff. Then we have a category that we call operational efficiency, which is really the staff perspective on how the buildings operate as a library. And that includes both staff space, that includes how the circulation function works, delivery. For those who've been in the branches, you may recognize that a lot of the staff spaces are a little bit undersized. And deliveries can become a challenge as the need for deliveries has increased and the sort of volume of interlibrary loan and things has increased. There will be a section on technology, and that's again where in addition to the information we harvested from staff. Our consultant Carson is really doing a lot of analysis on the information he's gathering and he observed. And then the last category is maybe the sort of least specific, but in some ways the most important to your constituencies. What do these buildings feel like? Are they welcoming? Are they bright? Are they dark? And those are the kinds of things that a lot of your community members notice first. So it's not hard data, but it's important data to understand and hear about. So that's what's happening this week. We're actually making sure the managers have a chance to see how we collated all the data that we heard and the data that informed our location by location summary was from the staff surveys, from our staff walkthroughs, from the community surveys. And now we're asking them to say, did we get it right? And make sure if there's something that somehow in all of this conversation we forgot, you make sure we hear, because the document has to be accurate and it has to be informed by that frontline staff who has the best direct connection to the community you serve. So that's happening now, and that will start to fold into our recommendations as we move forward. That was a lot. So thank you for indulging us in sharing with you how we got to where we are. I don't want to shortchange the time if you have any further questions or anything you want me to go back to, or if you have anything from June, because I didn't let her talk very much.
I just had another comment as well, being on the committee. I think that, first of all, when you sign up for a committee, you think this is going to be fun and it's going to be, and it has been, I mean, from that standpoint, but I sat there yesterday going, this is an incredible responsibility to predict, think about vision for the future of what our needs are for the system. And so, I mean, first of all, thank you for trusting us as board members to participate in this and guide it. I can't say enough about his last comments about staff input. I think it just continues to be the theme that we've talked about from the beginning as board members, to say, how are we engaging staff? So if any staff members are listening to this and you don't feel like you've had an opportunity to engage, send that email tonight. Give your comments, make sure you're giving input, because that's huge. And it kind of goes back to what Stephen had kind of said about the vision. I mean, it's really true. We want to know from the practitioners, the boots on the ground, what are your needs? Where are they at? And those have changed in the last 15, 20 years drastically for the needs. And libraries have become epicenters of communities. And in some communities have not been able to be that because they're not funded in a way they can be, or during COVID, they were connected to a municipal government that had to cut funding, different things along those lines. We're very blessed as a public library to be our own entity. And so from that, we want to, take this responsibility and move it forward. I think part of the challenge is, how is Allen County going to change and grow? That's one of the things we have to look at. And so as a part of this too, these consultants were given a demographic study that was done in Allen County. It concentrated on high growth areas from that standpoint to understand where is the growth going to occur in the next 10, 20 years, things along those lines. So as recommendations come, that all has to be considered. But we also need to make sure that existing branches are taken care of and they have the resources they need and assess everything. And I think that's the big piece of this, is that it's a full assessment of the system and how it works. It's not just cherry picking a couple things that we might need to improve. So I just felt like I needed to say that, because I just think it is an incredible challenge for us to look at all of this. But I really, I'm pleased with the assessments that are being done right now. I think we're getting a very thorough picture of the needs on that end. But we've got a lot of work ahead of us in the next several months too. So
Thank you.
I would like to thank the both of you on your presentation. Very well done. For someone who's been a citizen of Fort Wayne since birth and 60 plus years, my love for the library is always there. So I'm curious, between the two of you, what words would you use to describe the the community's attitude toward the libraries that we have?
I'll tackle it to begin with. I'd say it's very positive. You've met many of their expectations, and consequently, they have even more expectations going forward. But compared to other organizations with whom I've had the opportunity to work, I think you are very fortunate that you've been able to deliver quality service to them and for them that met their needs. And they want that to continue, but they also want a lot of new things as well. So,
I really can't add to that. I think
That's okay.
That's
That's
accurate.
okay.
It's been overwhelmingly positive, and it's also, just to reiterate, it's overwhelmingly rewarding to talk to all the staff and recognize that their first response is always about what has the community asked of us and how can we support that.
I have seen it as something that's vital to this community, and it's looked at upon as a way of something that brings attention to our community and provides services in such a multitude ways that this project, and those of you who are on the committee, I thank you for the time and effort you're giving to it, because it's only going to get better. Thank
Well done, and we look forward to your draft.
you.
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you in
Board members
advance
have
for all the
questions
input you'll continue to give us.
They'll be staying around. Okay, thank you again, June and Rick. Let's move now to Finance and Personnel Committee report. David?
Yes, mine's going to be a little longer than theirs. Bear with me. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Any questions of
Yeah,
this?
any
Any
questions?
questions?
No, real quickly, because most of everyone was there on Tuesday for this meeting. It really focused on the two main topics of the budget submission for 2022, and then some of the main compensation and benefit topics we wanted to broach the committee on moving into the fourth quarter when we'll be making decisions on those items. Just as a refresher, the budget I kind of talked about in my report, as far as we'll be submitting the 4.3% is the growth quotient. That's what we'll be holding our expense budget growth to, as well as the levy growth. The items on the compensation benefit side that we discussed, four main items had to do with offering a narrow network option for our health insurance. That would be a bit of a cost saving. Could be anywhere from 18 to 25% less in premiums for the participants who choose that. The other one is the possibility of expanding our, our plan design for accommodating transgender medical expenses that could be incurred. And then also on possibility of expanding COVID incentives, and also the ability for the wellness option to be offered a part-time. Both of those, all three of those items have more work that needs to be done. We're planning another F&P meeting in October or early November at the latest. Hopefully we'll have more data at that point. I know we are planning another survey to find out about vaccination rates, et cetera. And then the final discussion topic was how to deal with perhaps changing the salary bonus or they call it a bonus, but it's the cost of living increase given to those who have reached the ceiling of the pay range that they're at, and whether there would be option for prorating that over the year or making it as an adjustment at final. We'll be looking into that. Again, these will be items that will come at the next Finance and Personnel Committee, as well as then in November when we bring the final recommendation to the board for approval moving into 2022. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Good report. Any questions of David? Most of us were there. Okay, thank you. Well, let's move now to the director's report and an update on the strategic plan of the second quarter.
Thank you, Ben. To piggyback on Dave's report, so a week ago today, Dave and I were at County Council to do our annual presentation, and you see at your place setting a handout that we gave the County Council, a community impact report from 2020. And they really enjoyed seeing this. I think it made it all much more real to them to have this to hold in their hand. And I want to thank Stephanie's team for putting it together. I submitted a written report, a few highlights from my director's report. We did submit a few weeks ago, and when I say we, Stephanie and Denise and John Heidi and security did the heavy lifting on it. Submitted a grant request to the state library for $62,520 for federal pandemic relief funding. And if that is received by us, we will be using that to purchase an additional outreach delivery van. And we should find out if we are a recipient of those funds by the end of September. And that is a reimbursable grant that doesn't involve any local match. So those are the best kinds of grants. So fingers crossed. And luckily, the entire Rock the Plaza team is here in the room, so I can give them a shout out. So Rock the Plaza is rocking again, and it has returned to very enthusiastic crowds. I've been to the first two, and it was obviously my first time experiencing it, and it was just wonderful to see the community come together. They were so thrilled. I can't tell you how many people came up to me and our staff and said, thank you so much for bringing this back. And our final Rock the Plaza for the year will be next Saturday. We encourage you all to come out. It's at 6 o'clock. And also for maybe the first time, our friends at the library have had membership tables at Rock the Plaza, and that's been really fun for them. And we are also live streaming the event, so folks who aren't able to come out can watch it from home. And I want to thank everybody involved in Rock the Plaza. The team's all here, and they've just done an amazing job. It's been great to have it back. Also want to share that Ben and Kent, along with our foundation chair, Rich Beck, and our Friends president, Mike Horton, we have been having a series of meetings just to discuss collaboration and cooperation between the library, the Friends, and the foundation. And those have been moving in a very positive direction. And the foundation and Friends are in early discussions about exploring the possibility of hiring their own staff person to handle items like development and donor relations. Are there any questions about the director's report? Included in the director's report is Denise's second quarter report on the strategic plan, and she is here if you have any specific questions, but something that I thought was of interest that I wanted to point out on page 4. At the very bottom, one of the investment statements is reduce barriers and increase ease of use of programs, services, collections in internal and external spaces. And that supports the focus area of community awareness and engagement. And if you look at the increase from Q1 to Q2 of the meeting rooms and the study rooms, those have increased dramatically. That shows that we were able to get those reopened and have those available for the public, and they've been coming out in large numbers to use them.
Thank you. Kim, you're here. You're up next.
So the next item is the resolution to continue in the Indiana State Library Consortium for Public Library Internet Access. We do this every year. This is part of our E-rate program. This will be for funding year 2022. I will tell you that for funding year 2021, the savings for this was a little more than $75,000.
Sounds like something we should approve.
So moved. I'll second that.
And a second, any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay? Okay,
I will send this around for you to sign because
Sure.
we need to send that back to the library. The next thing that I have is an update to our network security policy. House Bill 1160 passed at the beginning of July that requires state agencies and local government entities to report cybersecurity incidents to the Indiana Office of Technology within 2 business days of an incident. I've been designated as the cybersecurity incident reporter for the library. The network security policy has been updated, and I've provided the marked up copy along with a clean copy. And I'll just kind of go through it a little bit. First of all, it hadn't been updated since 2016, so we had a new mission statement. That would be the first paragraph change. Then down under policy, the second paragraph under policy is what the IT department is responsible for. We added a bullet to that. that they need to now report cybersecurity incidents, and I list the 5 that are required to be reported to the state, to the director, as well as myself. And we will get those reported then on the state site. The next paragraph spells out the staff requirements, and we changed that to say staff will report all suspected computer security compromises to ITS immediately, and then from there ITS will decide which one of those need to be reported. And then the last paragraph is just some miscellaneous cleanup that we put in here. This has been public services staff has reviewed this, as well as Pete. Thank you. Your office has also provided input into this.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I certainly support this. So, but I did regarding the policy. But have we had any issues that we need to know about at all, Kim, at this point? Because I just got an email today from another service provider of mine that tells me you've been hacked once again, and so I'm just curious if
I did have to report something already. So
okay.
It was one of the email compromises. Yes, I did report that. And we also put some training in place for that, as well as we have a new payroll system now, which only staff will be able to update their status, their information on there. So there are some things that we have put in place because of that.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt the new policy or the updated policy of network security.
So moved.
And a second,
Second.
further discussion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We have a network security policy. Okay,
Thank you, Kim.
now to our favorite subject, COVID-19.
Thank you, Ben. So you'll notice that COVID-19 response update seems pretty general and generic. That's because I knew that it was highly likely we need to talk about COVID at this meeting. I wasn't quite sure what that would look like because this is such a rapidly evolving situation. So I want to share what we're doing now. I want to share some of the challenges we're facing right now, and also looking forward to, if indeed we do get into that red zone, what that might need to look like. So currently, right now, as I informed you several weeks ago, we are requiring our staff to wear masks when they are working with the public and in areas where they cannot socially distance from one another. Staff are not required to wear masks when they are working outside. Patron masking right now is strongly recommended, and disposable masks are made available. My unscientific observation is that I am seeing a lot more patrons wear masks in the library voluntarily, but it is not a mandate at this point. We have moved our staff training day to a virtual environment. Staff training day is October 4th. A few weeks ago, we decided that we needed to make a decision now because it's going to take time to translate that to a virtual environment. We did a staff survey, and the majority of staff said they would be much more comfortable in a virtual environment. And quite frankly, if we took that survey today, I think that number would have been even higher. So we are moving forward with that, and we are so fortunate to have another shout out to Access Fort Wayne, this top-notch production crew in-house who can help with that. Our trainer, James Olette, is also taking the lead on this, and we are working with a company who specializes in virtual conferences. And I think it's actually going to be a pretty amazing day. Very engaging, not just sitting in front of Zoom all day, but some interactive moments, very fast paced, some interviews with community leaders, a few surprises along the way. We'll be sending out links to all of you if you would like to participate virtually, but we are looking forward to a really engaging day, even though we may not be able to all be together, 350 of us in person, we can have that communal viewing experiences. We also made the difficult decision to postpone the start of indoor in-person programming until at least October. We will continue with our virtual programs. We also will be looking for opportunities to do outdoor programming like story times at parks. You saw the video from Georgetown
Programming is in our blood. It's what we love to do. And right now, it did not seem like a responsible decision, in particular to bring back in-person indoor story time with children who are not eligible for vaccination. So we will still have those story time and opportunities for children. They'll be virtual or they'll be outside at parks. And again, we are very motivated to bring this back as soon as we feel that it's safe to do so. But right now, at least until October, we are planning on keeping those either outdoors or virtual. We're experiencing a lot of challenges right now, as a lot of organizations are. As you know, the emergency leave for COVID did expire at the end of June. And we really thought that the days of large amounts of quarantine and people staying at home would be behind us. And there has been an uptick, and quite honestly, it's been a sudden uptick in the number of staff who have needed to be absent for COVID-related reasons. And that can be because they themselves are sick, they have been exposed or have symptoms and need to wait for test results to get back, or they're caring for someone like a child who is positive with COVID. Test results for COVID that were taking 1 or 2 days to get back are now taking 3 or 4 or longer to get back, which is resulting in people being out longer because they're waiting for that test result. Another challenge is that our part-time staff, they do not have sick time. So if they need to be out for COVID-related reasons, they either need to take their vacation time or they go unpaid because we no longer have that emergency COVID leave. And I just want to take this opportunity to say that the role our part-time staff play in keeping our libraries open, safe, and clean is really critical. Compounded with the vacancies and labor shortages that pretty much every other business and agency in this region are facing, it's been a struggle. In addition to having an uptick of COVID-related absences, we are trying to fill vacancies for positions like our shelvers and our branch assistants and our security guards in a local economy where fast food and other retailers are paying about $15 an hour, and that makes it really hard. And I want to thank all of our staff for their continued, really extraordinary efforts to keep our libraries open, clean, and safe during this time. So looking forward, right now, we are still in the orange as far as advisory level. If the numbers continue to trend as we have seen them, we could be in the red in the next week or two. And what does that look like? In the past, when we were in the red, the board had authorized the executive director or the interim executive director to make service adjustments as needed. That did not mean closing the buildings and sending staff home. What that meant was to adjust service models like going to a computer appointment basis, having appointments in the genealogy center, and reducing service hours to accommodate staff shortages due to quarantine, and having curbside service. And I hope that we've worked together long enough for you to know by now that I take library services very seriously. Since I have been here, I've been an advocate of expanding services. But I do need to tell you that if we go into the red, I think there is a great chance that we would need to look at reducing our service levels and adjusting our service levels, not closing the libraries to the public, not sending staff home, but just re-examining how we are providing library service. And what I am asking the board to do is to kind of revert back to when we were previously in the red and authorizing the executive director to make service adjustments as needed if indeed we go into the red zone. And what that might look like is limiting our use of meeting rooms, which would be hard, I know, because I just talked about how the use has really gone up these past few months. People loved having them back. It may mean that while we're in the red zone, we continue at our current service hours and not expand to the hours we were hoping to get to back in mid-September, which we talked about last meeting, expanding them. It may mean that at libraries where we have a significant amount of people out for quarantine or out because their children, school has been shut down, that temporarily at those libraries, we go to a curbside model to allow for a smaller amount of staff to be able to be in the building. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are we offering curbside service still?
Yes,
that's still.
Absolutely, all
everywhere.
locations.
Can you kind of explain to us, what's your process for making the decisions? Is it working with the management team, talking to branch managers, or what are you thinking right now as you come to those decisions?
All of that, and also, paying so much attention to the various public health announcements. This morning, I read an article where Dr. Sutter was quoted that as of now, he has not made any mandates. He's made some very strong recommendations, but no mandates or no restrictions. He did say that if the hospitals enter into a strained period, that may be the catalyst for him to make some of those restrictions and mandates. So we obviously take those public health guidelines and considerations as well. Into consideration as well.
We have before us Susan's request that we transfer the authority, or at least give her the authority to make decisions should we go into code red. I'd like to discuss that topic. Any comments?
So, using the story time as an example, the virtual. So, do you get the same attendance when it's done virtually that you do when it's done in person?
I would say it's lower. Now, we have been getting, in the summer, we got really strong attendance at the story times in the park. And the good news is that in September, fingers crossed, we should have nice fall weather. So we anticipate some strong attendance for that too.
Do the health experts, or have you taken note of the health experts' comments about children not being so impacted by this? Is there anything out there that indicates that we've had issues during the in-person story time or anything like that? Or is it just kind of a somewhat nebulous concern?
Well, we've been watching closely what's happening in schools and schools that have had to shut down. So we think that school environment is a real good indicator of what could happen in an in-person story time environment.
Well, I guess my only other comment, and this is just I know it's frustrating for everybody, obviously. Yeah. I think that the service that we offer is so critical that to basically defer that decision-making to you is a little bit of an abdication of our responsibility.
Now, you are aware we did that before.
I am aware of it, and I don't think I supported that too terribly strongly at the time. So I just, my personal opinion, I suspect it will pass.
Thank you. What about the rest of you, Sharon?
Yeah, I probably will respectfully disagree with Paul just on the part about relocating our responsibility, in as much that's why we hire directors, so that they can take on those responsibilities in between the course that the board gets an opportunity to meet. So I do respect your request and will more than likely support it, primarily because I know with the change of law downstate, it's limited some of the power that Dr. Sutter has to put us into different categories. It has to be decided by the commissioners who are elected and not medical doctors, the last I checked. But I do believe that that's some of the just strongly recommended wording that he used, since he doesn't necessarily have that power. But I also am concerned about the schools that are closing down, whether it's a week or whether it's 2 weeks, with our young babies, because they don't have the option to, they usually don't put on the mask or keep them on. They can go with it. But, I've seen when I sent my daughter, she went with 2 socks. She came back with 1. What'd you do with your socks? So we always have those kind of things with our young kids. So I think anything that we can do to make sure that we're not helping to spread is beneficial. So if that's what you believe would be there, then I would support you in that.
How about the rest of you?
Well, one of the main issues is timing, I see. If there's a need for a change, rather than putting things off until the next board meeting, I think we'd want to respond quicker than that. And therefore, I would be in favor of allowing the executive director to make real-time changes as opposed to putting it off or waiting until we meet again.
Thank you. Gloria?
I would say that we have more cases this year, the very beginning of the year, than we had probably in the interim at halftime or whatever. It's spreading, and I think I would want children to, the ones who are not able to be vaccinated, have a choice that parents would have. I certainly would trust that you have the heart and the knowledge that you would use appropriately and make a decision that would be in our patrons' best interest.
Kent or Marty?
Yeah, I'll support Susan making that decision.
I do too as well at this time. I've been looking at the phone, just looking at what exactly did Dr. Sutter say, this public health advisory 3 days ago, and been trying to look at this current statistics, but it's not coming up. But given all of his reports, given what he has said, I think I would support that as well at this time.
Can someone you place that in the form of a motion? And a second?
I move that we provide the executive director the authority to make the appropriate decision for the library and all branches with COVID-19 as the coding changes.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, so now, okay, and this is not meant to diminish Susan's ability to make decisions at all. I would be very clear on that. I just think it's a heck of a responsibility. And so I'm actually trying to protect you a little bit. So just to understand and she's not a doctor either, by the way. But to understand the motion, is it if we go to red, then things change? Is it that we have an automatic change, or is it just Susan can make changes to service based on, well, I heard Dr. Sutter or I heard Fauci or somebody say something?
Your request is for code red.
Yes.
Code red.
Okay, so if it goes to code red,
Then
but you
she's
don't
given-
have specific services that you're going to, or that you can identify now, it would just be kind of a stab at it, or?
Well, I would want to see what Code Red looks like and if there are any specific guidelines and mandates that are put out by the state or the county. But what I think that could look like is not expanding to the hours that we had planned on expanding to in mid-September. It could also look like with cases with libraries where we had too many staff out quarantining, that for a temporary period of time, that library would go to curbside service and or computer appointments only. It could look like in the genealogy center being on an appointment basis only, so we could have a better control of flow of the people entering the building, things like that.
Okay. Really, that's kind of what it boils down to me, for me, is just having a better understanding of, okay, what specific steps do you intend to take if we move to code red? It just seemed a little bit open-ended. In terms of the process. So,
Do you want me to modify?
no, I'm prepared to give up on COVID.
Any other,
Is it a staffing issue though too? Is that part of it, or is
Yes.
it all? Okay.
It is.
any other questions or
I
comments?
guess I would ask if we could amend that motion to specifically state when it does go to code red, the authority is given on that end.
Sharon, will you accept a friendly amendment?
I'll accept that friendly amendment to
And the
include
second?
with code red.
The second was Marty? Jim,
I would agree.
you'll accept that too? Okay, we have the motion as amended. All those in favor signify by aye.
I
Opposed by nay? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, any items of new business that should come before the body? Don't all rush to the lectern. Okay, we're at item 13 on our agenda, and that's public comment. I don't have eyes in the back of my head, but is anyone from the public here that wants to comment? Well, seeing and hearing none, yeah, well, Oh, okay. I will entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second, all in favor, aye, opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you so much. We have an executive session.
Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne. Learn more under the Explore tab at acpl.info.